it was where you wanted to have a job forever because it was the place to be. So they actually had to have the youngest go over, which was me at the time, because nobody who had any seniority wanted to go over to the bottling area and be in quality. And actually that was the best break I ever had, because that's where I learned how to taste. That was the beginnings. And I'll prove it to you. I actually have a picture here from 1982. And so you could see me tasting. That's when I started tasting back in 1982. So almost 40 some years now. I hope you could see that, by the way. And I didn't change much other than I have some lighter colored hair rather than the black hair.
Still got a glass in your nose.
And I still have the glass. It always seems to be there. It's almost connected. But from there, I went to the Seagram corporate office. Eventually, I became the Master Blender for Seagram. So I was responsible for all the Seagram products. And then we got bought out by Diageo and Pernod Ricard, and I went with Diageo for several years before I got the calling to come to Buffalo Trace Distillery. Now that was almost 17 years ago, and boy has it been a ride. From a distillery that wasn't very well known to one that's probably the best known in the world, as a matter of fact, or one of the best. So my career has expanded through 40 some years, and currently I'm the Master Blender for Sazerac and Buffalo Trace. Great. So that was me in a short story.
Yeah, and it looks like we have folks from all over again this week, Drew, from the UK, Hazard, Kentucky, San Antonio, Texas, Benton, Kentucky, Northeast Texas, so all over.
Fantastic. So today we're going to talk about mash bill number 2, and I'm really excited because we have a tremendous portfolio of products. Now, anybody that listened to last week's mash bill number 1, this is specifically mash bill number 2 at Buffalo Trace. And mash bill number 2 is different than 1, and mostly because of the amount of rye in it. So we went through it last week. If you didn't, all bourbon has to be in a new charred oak barrel. And just give me a minute. Sometimes I have trouble getting the top off. By law, at least 51% is corn. And corn is giving you that typical fruitiness, the sweetness that you smell and taste with a bourbon. And the second grain, or small grain, is rye. I don't know if you can see it, it's very small. But rye gives you that spiciness, and that's what's developing that pepperiness that when you taste a bourbon. And the third grain is barley malt, which is mostly used for the enzymes and the conversion process during the fermentation process. So you got corn and rye being the main ingredients, the flavor contributors, and this mash bill happens to be a higher percentage of rye versus mash bill number 1. So that gives you a good backdrop on where we're going with this and how it's actually made, the recipe. The other thing that's important in developing the flavor is this little white powder, and that's our yeast. And like I said last time, some people think it's cocaine because it's white powder, but it's not. It's just yeast. And yeast, along with the rye and corn, give you flavor. It develops the different types of flavors that we have in our products. And the last thing that's really important in these products, as it is in any matured products, is aging, the time element. Some people think it's a watch. No, it's time I'm trying to say. So in this particular recipe, because of the mash bill, we're going to get much more honey-like characters. We're going to get more spiciness in terms of baking spices. So you'll get that nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, all those types of spices that you're going to see a little more predominant in this particular one, but very soft at the same time. So it's not as much, at least on the nose, that pepperiness. Even though it's a higher rye content, you'll be surprised. So we're going to start off, well, actually, we're going to introduce, first we're going to talk about ancient age, then we're going to go through Hancock's Reserve, and then we're going to go with Rock Hill, Elmer T. Lee, and then lastly we'll do Blantons.
Yeah, Andy Walters on Buffalo Trace Facebook, he has "Is that Rock Hill Farms" in the middle with an exclamation point. So
yes, it's very difficult to get any of these, unfortunately, except probably Ancient Age, but it's an excellent product for its price point too. And when you taste it, you'll see why.
And real quick, Drew,
Yep.
before we get started, because I know you're going to walk through these, give us some great tasting notes and great background on these. Adam LaMarche asked, what are your nosing and tasting tips? So if you could, maybe as you go, just give us some tips on nosing and tasting as
That's
we
a great
go.
question.
Okay.
People ask a lot. So today we'll look at this one, which is a bigger volume product, and then 4 single barrels that we'll have right in a row. So as you know, with single barrels, there's some variation from barrel to barrel. So if you buy a bottle of this one time, the next time may be slightly different. Same goes with all these single barrel products. So first is the nosing and tasting techniques. That's a really good question because I really believe it's a subjective thing. So some people prefer to nose a certain way versus others. So I've seen people who they stick their nose right in to the bottom of the glass. Now, it may work for some people it doesn't. So I would really recommend you experiment. I know the way I like to do it is I like to nose softly. So you gradually bring your nose in and you kind of smell through both nostrils, and keep your mouth open a little bit to circulate the aroma. And when you smell, it's always good to just take a breather because you're adjusting to the alcohol because it's quite strong, especially as we get into a little higher proof, and do it again. So you're really getting conditioned to the nose. And when you do it that way, you're going to start smelling things that you wouldn't. And another way you could actually do it is you take a little bit on your finger and you rub it on your hand. You let the alcohol burn off. And you start smelling that bourbon character and you start seeing the different characteristics. And that's without the alcohol, so some people are easier, especially if you start tasting. And then when we taste, we like to take really cleansing palate, a cleansing taste first. I like to get oxygen in so I can taste all the flavors. And I also keep my mouth open a little bit after you take the first sip. But then your palate starts to adjust. And so the second sip is much more discerning, so you can actually see some differences. And then you look at the story that the bourbon is telling you, because each one of these is very distinctive as far as the story is concerned. Each taste is different. So when you actually taste, you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So the beginning is up front, and the middle is as it transmits across your palate or your tongue, and then the end is the finish and what you taste afterwards. So those are really basic techniques that we use when we taste any kind of bourbon, whiskey, rum, tequila, just about everything. So when we nose Ancient Age, which we target around 4 years for Ancient Age, now again, you're going to get a softness, a honey-like character. You get baking spices, not so much the pepperiness that you would expect. You get butterscotch. You might get some fruit notes like cherries. Almost like a candy corn, like a candy. Very, very sweet, actually. And when we taste it, you get those dry cherry notes up front, toffee notes. Again, more along the caramel butterscotch. And then also those vanilla notes. And again, you're not getting a lot of dryness and a lot of oak on the finish. And that's because we target 4 years. So if you were to taste one that was 20 years, you definitely would be more predominantly oak. You get a little cinnamon on the finish too, and a touch of spiciness. For the price point, it's an absolutely excellent bourbon. When I travel around the world, there are countries where I go and they drink this straight on the rocks because it's such a fabulous bourbon, even being quite a young bourbon. Wow, that's great.
So we're going to move on to, looks like Hancock's Reserve. So Ancient Age is 80 proof. It's a lower proof, and then Hancock's is a little higher.
Yeah, 88.9.
88.9. Okay, great.
So as we go up in proof, you're starting to see the fruits, the dates, the figs start to increase in flavor with proof increases. And you might even start to get a little bit of citrus notes like orange. First of all, I get that vanilla. You still get that cherry that you saw down there, but more intense, maybe some peach notes. You might be getting a little more wood on this because it's obviously aged longer. And before you ask, we usually don't describe the age. We look at a taste profile because we like to age these types of products maybe mid to high floors in some of our best warehouses.
So you're really selecting these barrels based on a taste profile.
Yes, as opposed to a strict age.
Sure.
And that's where people, well, I need to know the age, but it's not necessary because each warehouse is different. And one warehouse may be warmer than others, and it won't take as long, and some will be cooler and it takes longer. So you really got to look for the taste profile.
We've got an interesting question here, and I think it's
Whoa, that was good.
Yeah.
Whoa. That was a good single barrel.
Looks like Alexis asked, how is Ancient Age 80 proof and Hancock 88.9 if it's the same mash bill? So I think we should explain how, these aren't uncut, unfiltered. These are not barrel proof. So you can change the proof based on, the brand.
Yeah.
Or explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we differentiate taste by more than just the mash or the recipe. So the recipe is pretty standard. It's made for all of them. But we can differentiate on where it is in our warehouses, not just between warehouses, but within the warehouse. The first floor through the fifth, sixth floor if it has that many floors. So that can change the absolute maturation process. So you will actually get different tastes or more enhanced tastes. And then proof does change because it's perception that on your palate. So you'll actually, as we go up in proof, you're going to see more intensity, and it brings out certain flavors more than other proofs. So all those variables, and in addition to picking the barrels, from the locations, is a lot of choices for variation and a lot of different taste profiles. As a matter of fact, you could have the exact same whiskey within a warehouse and get all different flavors because some are going to age fast, some are going to age slow. Some will be near a window where there's a draft and they'll give you a different taste profile. So that's the beauty of a single barrel, is there's slight variances between barrels. Really good.
Great.
I just had to smell that one more time. That was a good choice on that single barrel.
That's funny. And Scott Birdsong has a funny question. At the end of the day, at the end of the workday, do you go home and drink bourbon? If so,
yes.
Yeah. What's your favorite daily
I usually
drink?
don't say my favorite because they're all my favorite.
Exactly.
Or sometimes I do say it's the one we haven't made yet. Just to keep you thinking. So the next one happens to be Rock Hill, which is 100 proof. So again, the proof going up, so really concentrating those flavors, especially the fruitiness and like figs. And the nose on this, you get that really intense, almost cinnamon-like baking spices. Definitely caramel and honey. Some berries potentially, like strawberries. And I do get that citrus note. It's almost like a refreshing note on the nose.
Is that a consistent
Yeah.
note for you on
Yeah.
on this? Yeah.
But it's really hard to see. Sometimes some people can see it, like an orange note.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, I think it's overwhelmed by all the other flavors. Really, really unbelievable up front. That story I was telling you about, the cherries and dark fruits that you're getting, it's absolutely delicious. Can we turn on the smell-o-vision?
It's one of the things, you know, if you get a chance to come out to the distillery, there's lots of things to smell just walking around this place, and it's hard to convey that on the camera.
Unbelievable. You get this one here because of the higher proof. I get a lot of residual spiciness, whereas I didn't get as much on this one on the Hancocks. But this one here the transition is fabulous. And there's a lot of difference between the beginning, middle, and end. So you really get, and I understand why one of our viewers had an exclamation point, but this one is just an absolutely fabulous, fabulous product.
Yeah, I can see there's a lot of fans for this line all the way through, all the way across. You got a lot of thumbs up for Rock Hill. Obviously, Blanton's is a big favorite too.
It's just the balance on these are exceptional. And you would think that because of the rye being a higher percentage that it would be so much more spicier. And it is to some extent, especially on the higher proof, but the balance and the transition is fabulous. You'll enjoy any of these no matter what. So this one next is Elmer T. Lee, and this is very near and dear to my heart because before Elmer passed, I had the opportunity to work with Elmer quite a few years when I was here. And every time we had Elmer on my table, on our tasting table, he'd come up and taste his products because Elmer, he liked this style of mash bill. He liked the sweeter, the honey notes, and he always preferred those. So we situate Elmer T. Lee in areas where it gives you those and less of the wood influence, because I didn't think he liked that tannic bitterness that you get with wood. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Sean Sloan asked if, can I have the leftovers?
Sure. So today, just to change it up, I brought a picture here, a very special picture to me that Elmer signed to me. And this is at the table that we used to taste together. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So he signed that to me.
To Drew, Elmer T. Lee, in case you can't see it. And does that table rotate?
Yes.
It's like a big lazy Susan.
That's exactly right, because we're lazy. Blenders are lazy. So we actually rotate to see all the glasses on the table. But there's Elmer tasting, and that's what he was best at. And he would sit down and taste all his products, at least when I was there. And we would have discussions. He would come into my office, and we'd just sit there for an hour or two just talking. And he was the nicest person you'd ever want to meet, and it's a real tribute, this whiskey, to him, to this bourbon for him. And he was pretty proud of it, and to his last day, he was tasting as much as he could. So that's why it's a very special bourbon for me. And so this one, again, these are single barrels that we're looking at, these last four.
And just to be clear, these are released as single barrels.
Yes.
These aren't, I just want to be clear on that.
So that, to me, that means that there is extra care taken with each one of these, because each one of these barrels goes through my taste panel and myself before it's approved. So each barrel is approved individually versus 100, 200, 300 barrels like a big batch. So each one is approved through my team. So the more single barrel you drink, the more people that or more work I have. So keep it up. Just fabulous. And this is at 100 proof. Wow. It's so soft, it's delicate on the nose. It's very difficult to describe other than just exquisite. Really honey, brown sugar notes. I start getting a little bit of leather because I think of the age of it. You get a nuttiness. Just balance is phenomenal. Wow. It seems like every time I taste the next one, I like it more. They're all great. I wish people could taste it. I really get that raisiny date and fig taste really pronounced it just ramps up, I think, as we go through these.
And it looks like we do have several folks tasting along with you as well.
Right.
Yeah. Picking out some tasting notes.
Now that one you should get a little bit of that orange zest, that citrus note. Really well balanced. And the finish is warming it. It's not like it's really hot and spicy. It's warming as you sip it. It's really like, it'd be just great to drink this, sip it in front of a fireplace, especially when it's cold right now. It's fabulous.
Mm. Yeah, special name on that bottle, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that one does mean a lot to me personally, especially because it's Elmer and his product. So we saved one of the best for last, and this is iconic, Blantons, which Elmer actually helped introduce back in 1983, the world's first single barrel bourbon. And back in the beginning, I don't think it sold too well, actually. Today, we have lineups out the visitor center when we do have it for people trying to buy it. And I'm sure liquor stores have the same issue. So, very iconic bottle. As you can see, for 93 proof, it has a beautiful decanter-like bottle with a horse. And I thought today we would explain a little bit about the horse. Because what's more Kentucky than horse racing and bourbon, right? That's iconic. And that little horse, I did bring a stave with me that has all those corks that you can collect. So a lot of people, they don't realize that each cork is probably different because we have all the letters that spells Blantons here. So if you look at it, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different positions of the jockey from the start of the race and to the finish of the race when the jockey is raising his baton and saying he won. So you can see the different positions, and each one of these at the heel has a letter. So this is a B, L, A, all the way through to the other S, and each one is different. And so if you collect them all, people mount them on these types of staves just to show the different corks for each letter. In other words, you have to buy at least 8 bottles. And it's quite unique and quite fun if you don't know, if you haven't seen that before. So when you do buy a bottle of Blantons, you can see which letter. You don't have to save them all because I keep all the O's, so don't worry about it. No, I'm just kidding. So the last one.
Somebody does ask, is
yes.
there differences between the ends?
Yes.
So they are different. There's
see this is the N, I think. Let me see. Yep. And should be that one. Yeah.
So there are two different ends, just to be clear. Yep.
Yeah, if you see the leg looks different. It's more of a gallop here. Here's I think it's different. It looks different.
Yeah, they're different.
Yeah,
so
that looks totally different.
The stride is different. Yep.
So don't get two of the same. You have to get two different ones.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Both of those.
So it's continuing along with that softness, the caramel notes, maybe a little bit of apple on this one, the spiciness, the baking spices, the cinnamon, a touch of tobacco. And you might get that orange note too on this. Ooh. Just beautiful. At 93 proof. Definitely get orange notes on the taste. Definitely those sweet baking spices. And this transition across the palate, the sweetness up front carries on. You actually get the rye spiciness on the tip of the tongue, and the balance is phenomenal. So the story is really from sweet through, and then you get a touch of the oak and the dryness in the back of the palate.
Great.
This is a classic. So if you ever have the opportunity, I think any of these would be great to purchase.
And we say too, if you can't find a bottle, you know, there's bars and other places you can go in and try. Get a pour and support your local bar.
Yes.
Try them out.
Or you can come and taste with me.
Yeah, there you go. Well, now the requests are going to go wild, Drew, just so you know.
But we got a few more minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are getting close to 30 minutes. I have some questions for you.
Sure.
We touch on the expansion here at the distillery quite a bit. We know there's a big expansion going on. So
Yes.
I think that'll help answer some of these. I'm going to group them. There's a lot about, you know, I'm hoping to find more of these products on the shelves and where can I find them. But Sundash on Buffalo Trace Distillery Facebook does say, are these products going to be more available with the expansion? So we do know you're making more products. The distillery is making more of all the products.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've been here for 17 years. We've made more every single year. Always more, never enough. And that's the problem with being successful, is that our customers tend to like the taste of our products. And when people like the taste, they want more, so they buy more. And they tell their friends. And so my advice is not to tell your friends. No, I'm just kidding. But we have made more ever since I've started, and with the expansion, the intent is to make more to satisfy our customers. Unfortunately, when you do make more, it takes a lot of years to age this product. So you just can't make it today and sell it tomorrow. It's going to take years and years until it's ready.
Yep. And if anybody has any questions on the expansion, the cookers, the warehouses, they're all that's covered in Whiskey Wednesday episodes from the past.
Right.
So feel free to jump in, look at Facebook, look at YouTube. There's a lot of great content we've already recorded.
Or even come and visit.
Come and visit, exactly. All right. So yeah, I think that answers a lot of the questions. Anything you'd like to add as a closing, or?
Well, as far as mash bill number 2 is concerned, you get a lot of variety of taste based on this mash bill, not just with the proof, but with the location. So you're getting a variety of different flavors and tastes. Generally, there's some similarities, but the sensation across the palate will be different for each one of them. So it's like it really is drinking different types of products and different taste profiles, because that's the way we pick them as far as the barrels. And for single barrel expressions, every barrel will be different. So enjoy.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Drew. We've kept you for about half hour.
Yeah.
I know we could taste and chat for a lot longer.
Well, I will, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheers.
So yeah, cheers. Thanks, Drew, for your time. We know you're busy, so we're going to let you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Next time.